In a rapidly evolving landscape of international relations, the dynamics between the United States and China continue to be a focal point of global attention. Recent developments, particularly involving President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping, illustrate the complexities and ongoing tensions that shape this bilateral relationship. As both nations grapple with trade disputes and geopolitical maneuvering, the question arises: will Trump opt for cooperation or exacerbate discord with China? On June 5, 2025, Trump engaged in a phone call with Xi, marking their first direct communication since Trump began his second term. This conversation followed a significant escalation in the ongoing trade war, raising expectations for potential resolutions. In a post-call statement, Trump framed the dialogue as a success, claiming it led to a very positive conclusion for both countries. He noted that Xi had agreed to resume exports of rare earth minerals and magnets to the U.S., addressing concerns from the automotive industry regarding production risks. However, beneath the surface-level pleasantries, analysts suggest that the call may have inadvertently bolstered Xi's image as a formidable leader. Ling Dongkong, a political science expert, highlighted how the framing of the call suggested that Trump was seeking Xi's approval rather than the other way around. The official Chinese narrative implied that it was Trump who initiated the conversation, reinforcing Xi's standing both domestically and internationally. The resumption of rare earth exports is particularly notable as these materials are crucial to various U.S. industries, especially automotive manufacturing. China's suspension of these exports had raised alarms in the U.S. following the imposition of tariffs on Chinese goods. While the two nations reached a temporary tariff truce on May 12, ongoing negotiations have been fraught with deeper structural issues, including accusations of currency manipulation and export subsidies. The fragility of this truce is evidenced by the complexities surrounding the rare earth supply chain, which remains heavily reliant on Chinese resources. In parallel with these developments, troubling reports emerged of two individuals charged with stalking a Los Angeles artist who had publicly criticized Xi Jinping. Cui Guanghai and John Miller allegedly orchestrated a harassment campaign against the artist, intending to silence dissent and protect the image of the Chinese leadership. This incident underscores the lengths to which some individuals may go to suppress free speech and dissenting views, particularly those critical of the Chinese government. The two men also attempted to illegally export sensitive U.S. military technology to China, further complicating the geopolitical landscape. In a separate but related context, Xi recently held discussions with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, emphasizing the importance of strengthening bilateral ties and promoting regional stability. Xi's call for cooperation between China and South Korea reflects a strategic pivot as Lee signals a potential shift in South Korea's foreign policy, aiming to improve relations with Beijing amid ongoing tensions with the U.S. This diplomatic maneuvering highlights the intricate web of alliances and rivalries in the region as nations navigate their relationships with both superpowers. As the U.S. China trade war continues to unfold, the stakes remain high for both countries. Trump's administration faces significant pressure to manage its relationship with Xi, particularly given the potential repercussions of supply chain disruptions on the U.S. economy ahead of upcoming elections. Conversely, Xi appears to be leveraging China's position as a key supplier of rare earth materials to maintain an upper hand in negotiations. Looking ahead, the trajectory of U.S.-China relations will likely hinge on Trump's willingness to engage constructively with Xi while navigating the myriad of challenges that threaten to derail diplomatic efforts. The interplay of economic interests, national security concerns, and public perceptions will shape the future of this critical relationship, underscoring the delicate balance of power on the global stage. As both leaders prepare for potential future interactions, the question remains: will they choose collaboration or allow discord to define their engagement? In a striking intersection of art politics and international intrigue, two men have been charged with stalking a Los Angeles artist who publicly criticized Chinese President Xi Jinping. Federal prosecutors allege that Cui Guanghai, a 43-year-old from China, and John Miller, a 63-year-old British national and permanent U.S. resident, orchestrated a campaign of harassment against the artist while simultaneously attempting to illegally export sensitive U.S. military technology to China. This case highlights the lengths to which some will go to silence dissent and underscores the increasingly fraught relationship between the U.S. and China. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, the harassment plot was aimed at an unnamed artist who planned to protest Xi during the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Summit in San Francisco in November 2023. The artist had created provocative sculptures depicting Xi and his wife, which portrayed them in a compromising position, kneeling bare-chested with their hands bound. Such artistic expressions have not only raised eyebrows but also alarmed authorities concerned with political dissent. Prosecutors revealed that Chui and Miller, who unwittingly hired two undercover FBI agents, plotted to place a tracking device on the artist's vehicle and had plans to vandalize his sculptures. They arranged to pay $36,500 to the undercover agents to convince the artist to refrain from showcasing his work online. This dual strategy of harassment and espionage reflects a troubling trend of silencing critics through intimidation, especially as tensions between China and the U.S. escalate. In addition to their stalking charges, Chui and Miller are facing allegations of attempting to smuggle restricted military technology, including air defense radar drones and cryptographic devices, into China. The two reportedly plan to conceal this equipment within everyday items to evade detection. However, their efforts were thwarted when they encountered complications in shipping and were detained in Serbia. The U.S. government is now pursuing extradition to bring them to justice. Dan Bongino, the FBI's deputy director, underscored the gravity of the situation, stating, "The defendants allegedly plotted to harass and interfere with an individual who criticized the actions of the People's Republic of China while exercising their constitutionally protected free speech rights within the United States of America." This case not only raises questions about free speech but also about the implications of foreign interference in domestic affairs. As this story unfolds, it parallels broader geopolitical dynamics. The Chinese government has been known to employ various tactics to suppress dissent both domestically and abroad, creating an atmosphere of fear for those who dare to voice opposition. The implications of this case extend beyond the individual artist, touching upon issues of artistic freedom, national security, and the lengths to which state actors will go to protect their image. Looking ahead, the U.S. will likely continue to scrutinize any activities that threaten its democratic principles and the rights of its citizens. As the legal proceedings against Chui and Miller progress, the case may serve as a catalyst for further debates around the balance between national security and individual rights, particularly in an era where the lines between art politics and international relations are increasingly blurred. The outcome could also influence future U.S. China relations, especially as the world watches how both nations navigate the complexities of dissent and freedom of expression. In a striking display of political maneuvering, Chinese President Xi Jinping is once again engaging in a series of high-profile purges within the ranks of his government and military, signaling not only his intent to consolidate power but also a response to the mounting pressures of economic and demographic decline. These developments are raising eyebrows among analysts and political observers who suggest that Xi's actions reflect an underlying insecurity as he faces criticism and challenges both domestically and internationally. Recent reports indicate that Xi is targeting senior military officials, including General He Weidong, a pivotal figure within the People's Liberation Army (PLA), as part of a broader campaign to eliminate potential rivals and enforce loyalty among the ranks. This purge comes on the heels of last year's removals of key Defense Ministry officials Wei Fenghe and Li Shangfu, and highlights Xi's continued reliance on political purges as a tool for maintaining control. Xi's purges serve a dual purpose, noted analysts Ethan Yang and Ryan Yank. Removing genuinely corrupt individuals while simultaneously neutralizing political threats. The Chinese Communist Party (CCP), known for its secretive operations, has made it clear that Xi's latest moves are indicative of a leader who perceives his position as increasingly vulnerable. The combination of Xi's ambitious policy failures, including a disastrous response to the COVID-19 pandemic and struggles within the housing market, has created a precarious environment for his leadership. The economy has been facing significant headwinds with annual GDP growth below expectations. Yang and Yang stated, asserting that these economic pressures are likely influencing Xi's decisions to purge officials who are closely associated with these failures. In a political landscape where the military's role is extensively intertwined with the CCP's authority, these purges are particularly telling. Unlike in Western democracies where military leaders report to elected officials, the PLA's allegiance lies firmly with the party. As such, the recent oustings serve to reaffirm Xi's expectations of loyalty and discipline within the military, especially as he grapples with challenges to his governance. Adding complexity to the situation is the broader geopolitical context wherein Xi's domestic vulnerabilities are mirrored by international tensions, especially with the United States. The ongoing trade war, particularly regarding tariffs and rare earth minerals, complicates China's economic landscape. Xi's government has been accused of employing aggressive policies that may stifle foreign investment and exacerbate existing economic issues. The Trump administration's recent tariff increases and export restrictions have further strained relations, prompting China to seek ways to stabilize its economy while negotiating with the U.S. As the U.S. and China attempt to navigate this tumultuous trade relationship, Xi's approach to purging political rivals could be interpreted as an effort to project strength and unity in the face of external pressures. However, the potential consequences of such actions may lead to a bureaucratic environment dominated by fear and compliance, ultimately stifling innovation and critical discourse within the party. Analysts caution that if Xi's purges continue unchecked, they may reduce his access to impartial advice and competent leadership, potentially exacerbating the very issues he seeks to manage. Looking ahead, the trajectory of Xi's leadership in conjunction with China's economic performance will be pivotal. As the CCP grapples with internal strife and external pressures, the continuation of these political purges may indicate a leader who is increasingly reliant on a facade of control rather than a foundation of genuine support. The implications of Xi's decisions will resonate not only within China but across the global landscape. As the interplay between political stability and economic viability remains a critical focus for observers and stakeholders alike. The coming months will be crucial in determining whether Xi can navigate these challenges or if his actions will lead to greater instability within China's political framework. In an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape, the relationship between the United States and China remains fraught with tension, particularly concerning Taiwan and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. As the world watches these two powerful nations navigate their respective foreign policies, the stakes could not be higher, especially with the potential for military confrontation looming on the horizon. Recently, during a meeting with Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, Chinese President Xi Jinping reiterated China's position on the Ukraine war, emphasizing three core principles aimed at facilitating a resolution, preventing the conflict from escalating, avoiding the extension of hostilities beyond the combat zone, and curtailing any external influences that might exacerbate the situation. Xi's call for international collaboration to create favorable conditions for a political settlement underscores Beijing's declared neutrality. However, this stance has drawn scrutiny, particularly as reports emerge detailing China's support for Russia's war efforts, including the provision of dual-use goods and, as revealed in recent EU findings, even lethal military supplies. In contrast to China's assertive foreign policy, the United States has been ramping up its military presence in the Indo-Pacific, particularly in response to increasing Chinese military activity around Taiwan. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth recently warned that the possibility of a Chinese attempt to forcibly unify Taiwan is imminent, citing a staggering 300% increase in military pressure from China over the past year. This increase has made it nearly impossible to differentiate between military exercises and actual preparations for conflict. Admiral Samuel Papero, commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, characterized these military maneuvers as dress rehearsals for forced unification, emphasizing the urgent need for the U.S. to bolster its military readiness in the region. The implications of China's military posturing extend beyond mere rhetoric. Recent statistics indicate that incursions across the Taiwan Straits median line have surged dramatically from 953 incidents in 2021 to over 3,000 in 2024. Such aggressive maneuvers not only threaten Taiwan's sovereignty but also challenge U.S. strategic interests in the region. The erosion of operational warning time means that the U.S. could find itself at a disadvantage should China decide to initiate hostilities. In light of these challenges, experts argue that the Trump administration must take decisive steps to enhance U.S. military presence and responsiveness in the Indo-Pacific. This includes leveraging status of forces agreements SOFAs to increase military deployments in allied nations, intensifying military campaigning in the region to maintain credible deterrence, and utilizing the recently renegotiated compacts of free association COFA with Pacific Island nations to establish operational bases closer to Taiwan. As the geopolitical landscape evolves, the potential for conflict remains a pressing concern. The U.S. must navigate its response carefully, balancing deterrence with diplomatic engagement, with both nations poised for confrontation. The coming months will be critical in determining the future of U.S. China relations and the stability of the Indo-Pacific region. The world will be watching closely to see whether the Trump administration can effectively position the United States to respond to aggression while fostering a diplomatic path forward in the face of escalating tensions. As international dynamics shift, President Xi Jinping of China has made a significant overture to South Korea's newly elected President Lee Jae-myung. In a recent phone call, she urged his South Korean counterpart to set the bilateral relationship on the right course, emphasizing the need for collaboration in multilateralism and free trade. This diplomatic engagement comes at a time when Beijing is seeking to strengthen ties with Seoul amid increasing tensions with the United States. Lee, who assumed office just last week after winning a snap election, is perceived as a proponent of closer ties with China, a stance he championed during his campaign. In his discussion with Xi, he was encouraged to foster a good neighborly friendship that would promote diplomatic, economic, and cultural exchanges between the two nations. She highlighted that respect for each other's core interests and major concerns is crucial for maintaining a positive trajectory in bilateral relations, asserting that a stable and deepening partnership would benefit both countries and contribute to regional and global stability. Xi's sentiments reflect a broader strategy by China to recalibrate its foreign relations, particularly as it navigates an increasingly competitive landscape with the United States. The Chinese leader articulated that the relationship between China and South Korea should align with contemporary global trends and serve the fundamental interests of both peoples. He stated a healthy, stable, and continuously deepening China-South Korea relationship aligns with the trends of the times, serves the fundamental interests of both peoples, and contributes to regional and global peace, stability, and prosperity. Lee's election marks a notable shift in South Korea's political landscape, especially following the controversial tenure of his predecessor Yoon Suk-yeol, whose administration faced backlash for its hardline stance toward North Korea and strained relations with Beijing. Lee's platform included promises to improve ties with China, signaling a potential pivot in South Korea's foreign policy that could reverberate throughout the region. As South Korea embarks on this new diplomatic chapter, analysts will be closely watching how Lee's administration navigates its relationships with both China and the United States. The evolving dynamics could have profound implications not only for South Korea but also for regional stability in East Asia. With Xi's call for cooperation, the stage is set for a potential thaw in relations, but the path forward will require careful diplomacy and a balancing act amid competing interests. Looking ahead, the response from the United States and Japan, both critical players in the region, will likely influence the trajectory of Seoul's foreign policy. As these nations respond to Lee's overtures toward China, it remains to be seen whether the emerging diplomatic landscape will lead to greater collaboration or renewed tensions in East Asia.